Thank you, Carter. Yeah, we feel good to be at this part of the season and to be 5-1. The bye week certainly gives us a chance to heal some of our bumps and bruises. We are a little beat down as a football team. Played some physical games here back to back, and give us a chance to really get re-energized and ready to go for what promises to be an exciting and challenging stretch run. So we're ready for that, and with that, I'll open up for questions.
Great. We'll start with Gary Furman from Canesport. Gary, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, how you doing today? With it being an open week, can you take a minute or two and just talk a little bit about which young players on the roster are flashing in practice, on scout team, on both offense and defense, and who we might not be seeing a lot of in the games?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just start on offense. I mean, certainly offensive line, I'd say Jalen Rivers. Jalen actually got a couple snaps in our heavy package on Saturday, but we're really excited about Jalen's development as a tackle, which is pretty unique for a guy his size. So I would say he's flashing. Certainly I think the wide receivers have all gotten into games, and I think they've shown their potential, and I think they'll continue to develop and improve. But we really like the group of young wideouts that we have, and obviously the running backs everybody's had a chance to see. Dom Mammarelli played a lot in the game with Brevin being absent. Dom was outstanding on special teams on Saturday as well. So, and then Tyler Van Dyke, we're very excited to watch Tyler every week in practice. He's getting better and better. And I think he's got everybody on the inside of the program pretty excited about him. Defensively, I really feel the same way. I mean, obviously you've seen Brian Balaam get into some games. Isaiah Dunston's been able to get into some games. Jalen Harrell, got pushed into duty this past Saturday and went out there and for what he was asked to do, ran around, made some good tackles. The linebackers, everybody's seen Flag, but Tyreek Austin Cave, when he and Avery Huff, can just get the assignments down, their athleticism is, I think, what we've been, wanting to get at linebacker, and I think those guys will improve us once they know what they're doing. And then up front, whether it's Elijah Roberts, Quentin Williams, Chance Williams, all those guys flash for us in practice. So I've kind of said over and over again, but I almost feel like I'm listening about all of them. But it's a talented class. Isaiah Walker has come in and done some things, and really shown his his skill set, which is exciting. Helping us out as with our scout team guys. So really, I think the entire class, we would recruit them all again if given the opportunity.
As a quick follow, is Tyler Van Dyke getting to the point where he can challenge Nkosi, or is that a little bit down the road? And also, of those young freshman receivers, are any of them standing out above the other?
The first part of your question, yeah, I would say that's true. I think we want competition. I think Tyler and Nkosi are pushing each other, and both those guys know that they've got to stay prepared and because they could go in at any time. And then of the wide receivers, they're all just different. I think Keyshawn Smith, maybe flashes the most because of his outstanding speed, but Redding's just got a knack for stacking people on the outside and making plays down the field. And then, of course, Restrepo's skill set, with his short area quickness on the inside of the field. And Daz Worsham is a guy, again, who's got a good attitude and is working every day and is talented as well. So they're just all a little bit different, but I think what probably is Keyshawn's speed probably flashes above all the skill sets.
Thank you.
Great. Next, we'll go to David Lake from 24/7. David, go ahead.
Hey, Manny, wanted to ask you just a big picture, bye-week, mid-season type question. You've been with De'Aaron King now for half the season. Just whether it's on the field, off the field, in what way that he has impacted your program, has impressed you the most? And, you guys are 5-1. How much of that is due to just him joining your program?
It's hard to quantify exactly how much, but certainly a large part of it is because of De'Aaron. And it's not just even the performance on the field. I think he just gave us what we were so needing in terms of someone that the entire team can believe in and rally around. I think our players believe that every week we have a chance to win because he's our quarterback. And again, it just I know I said it before, but his ability to connect with all of his teammates makes everybody feel together. But then the fact that he's humble and he's a low ego guy, it's hard for anybody to kind of, beat their chest and say, I'm the man, when you've got a guy like Derek who just kind of goes about his business in a calm way as he does. So, we're such a better team in so many ways because we have Derek and a big part of why we are 5-1.
Next, we'll go to Susan Miller-Degnan from the Herald. Susan, go ahead.
Hey, Manny. The NCAA approved legislation recently that athletes will not practice and compete on the first Tuesday after November 1st every year, and that includes next week's election day. How do you feel about the new rule? What will your guys be doing election day? I'm thinking some of them have voted already. Also, just how will that affect your prep for North Carolina State? And can the players or coaches, for that matter, do anything football related that day?
So it's a good rule, because it gives our players who may not have a chance to vote. There's no telling what the lines will be like on election day, and it gives them an opportunity, to get out there and to do it. I've been very impressed. Our Social Justice Council, headed up by Eric Hickson, not only getting everybody on our team registered to vote, but we're going to push to get a bunch of our guys to an early voting location and have them vote actually this week during the bye week. And you got a team full of everybody who just about, I'd imagine this will be the first election they've ever voted in. So this is a great chance to express one of the great things, what it means to be an American and have their voice heard, whatever side that they're on, and just be a part of the democratic process. So really proud of the council, proud of the guys for being able to do that. In terms of our prep, we're probably a little bit like NC State, where I think we're both a little better off because it's a short week, but we are coming off of, sort of a one-day short bye. So we can just move our Tuesday, Wednesday practices to Sunday and Monday to take Tuesday off. And then we'll have Wednesday and Thursday for prep before we fly to Raleigh.
Okay, so you can't, as a coach, can you do anything that day football related, or it's not really has nothing to do with you guys as coaches? Can you do planning and all that meeting?
Oh yeah, no, we can come to work because I would imagine most of our staff will have already voted. I'll have already voted by election day. So yeah, we'll just come in and be able to do what we normally do in terms of our prep after a Wednesday practice.
Last thing, do you guys talk about, like, the players? You're talking about the Social Justice Council or whatever. Do you guys among yourselves talk about the different points of view?
You need the like button for me and share for me, man.
I'm sorry. Finish your thought there.
No, I'm wondering if you guys get together and actually talk, the players and coaches, just about the different options for voting, the candidates, and just points of view and stuff. Do you do that?
Well, we don't want to get into points of view, right? Because that's not really our place to tell anybody who to vote for. But what we are doing, we are having a meeting this week, and what we are doing is we're trying to really explain to our players the ins and outs of local government. I think everyone understands, what it means to elect a president. But I don't know that our players have the understanding of who's in charge really of what on the local ballot, because obviously a lot of what occurs in our community is really dictated by the local governments, county or city. And we don't spend enough time, I think, on that. Who's in charge of this? Who's accountable if I don't like this about something in my community? And a lot of our guys don't know. So that is something we're gonna have a meeting on later this week, and just kind of sort of a crash course in civics. So when you understand when you're looking at these names on the ballot, everyone spent a lot of time and resources on the presidential election, which is a super big deal. But there's a lot of other ones that we're voting on, on next week that it can equally impact how we operate in our community. So I want our players to have an understanding, at least, of not this person for that person, this issue, that issue, but just kind of how does government work in general.
Thank you.
Great. Next, we'll go to Manny Navarro from The Athletic. Manny, go ahead.
Hey, Coach Diaz. So we've talked about offensive tackles and recruiting offensive linemen and how tough that can be. It feels like maybe you guys have addressed it this year and getting better offensive tackle play, especially against those big athletic defensive ends and pass rushers. Zion Nelson graded out well, according to Pro Football Focus last weekend, one of the best in the ACC actually against the pass rush. Just curious how you see that position sort of at the midway point of this season? Because in the past, I know that's been an issue for you guys trying to find those offensive tackles who are good enough on the outside.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We do think Zion has really developed and played well. John Campbell, has been able to take some snaps, and play for us. I mean, where you feel like you've got more than one or even more than two tackles that can compete in the ACC. Obviously Jared Williams, adding him to our right side, I think just sort of calmed some things down and solidified the tackle position. And it to your point, I think it has been better this year. We didn't play great on the right side on Saturday, but that's been sort of the outlier, throughout the beginning part of the season. So, and then as you mentioned, that's just recruiting. We just got to recruit and recruit, and in every year to try to keep stacked recruiting classes to create competition and improve our roster.
Great. Next, we'll go to David Fuentes from the Sun Sentinel. David, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. You mentioned this morning how many changes you had to make on special teams units with players unavailable. Maybe not as much on offense and defense with so much freshmen, although there are some that play. But I wondered if you could take me through some of those changes. Obviously, we see Xavier Restrepo has been taking in punts, but on those other units, just where guys line up. I think you mentioned Don Mammarelli. Any other guys that stood out to you?
Well, yeah, obviously, Gervin Hall has got to go in. Gervin becomes our punt returner, and then Gervin injures his ankle in the first half, so now you're really, Pope goes in there, catches a punt, and Gervin, I mentioned this, Gervin played outstanding in the second half of the game, just with his effort on defense and on special teams. But, it's just, there's guys on kickoff return. I think, Dante Johnson, went in there and played some tackle for us on kickoff return. There was a lot of moving pieces, and it's not just the starters, it's your backups, because special teams, during the course of the game, a guy may go down, a guy may be tired. I mean, there's so many things going on, and so not just getting your first deep, but your second deep, and so there was some gymnastics with that on Saturday for sure. And then obviously we lost some depth. We lost some depth at wide receiver. We lost some depth in our secondary, and when we lose Amari on the first play of the game, that's why I mentioned after the game, Gilbert Frierson just jumping back and playing safety. I mean, we were kind of drawing things up, in the dirt. And Gilbert's smart enough that he was able to handle that and do that and give us a series and limit some of the snaps on Gervin, so we can see the day out.
And I also just wanted to ask, as a clarification on some a general COVID-related unavailability. You can be unavailable whether it's because of a positive test or just because of contact tracing, correct? If you were in close contact with someone, and then how long are those? Do they range from 5 to 14 days? Is that right? Depending on the type of contact you were in with a positive case?
The range is 10 to 14 days. But to your question, yes, you can be on the list for both reasons.
Thank you.
And all that's the ACC rule. That's written in the literature. It's all available to everybody.
Next up, we've got Tom D'Angelo from the Palm Beach Post. Tom, go ahead.
Hey, Manny. I was going exactly where Susan went, but a couple of quick things on this time right now. First of all, do you know if you had 100% registration? Is that even possible? I don't know if that's.
Oh yeah. We were 100% back in July.
Okay, I thought so. Man, you've been around a lot of. You've been coaching for a while and been around a lot of elections around kids. This year. It's just a different time. Kids are so much more aware. It seems like you guys are everybody's doing this. What does that say about these kids now and their awareness and how different is it now from when you started around these elections? It just seems that it's just a different level for these kids being aware of what's going on.
Well, obviously 2020 has been a year unlike any other. I mean, not just with the coronavirus, but with everything else that's been going on. And, and look, I don't think this is just our student athletes. I think this is just sort of everybody in society. I mean, social media has become, there's, I don't know if you've seen, there's amazing documentaries on this. I mean, how social media has become militarized and politicized on both sides. And our players live in the social media realm. So it's hard to be in that environment and not be exposed to political viewpoints. And generally speaking, whoever you follow or whatever you like, you're going to see more and more of your political viewpoints to whichever side that you agree with, and there's some good in that, and there's certainly some inherent bad in that, but it is hard to ignore. So I do think that this generation, not just, certainly my generation, your generation, but there's no doubt that if you're of the age that this is your first election, you are probably have been bombarded with more political information through social media than and they've been exposed to more than we ever would have been. I mean, we had to be sitting in front of a TV when I was a kid just to see the political ads. And now they just, it's relentless. And so they have no choice but to not be in that arena.
Okay. So, and real quick, there is a place on campus. These kids are able to have been early voting on campus. There's some place on campus for them to early vote.
It's not necessarily on campus. We're no different than anybody else. We have all the early voting locations across Dade County, and they would just go there or vote by mail.
Okay, I think because some places had them on campus, but thanks, appreciate it.
Okay, got time for a couple more. We'll go to Donovan Campbell from WSVN. Donovan, go ahead.
What's going on, Coach? How you doing?
Good, Donovan. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. First and foremost, how has the pandemic hurt or helped the recruiting process? And what's you guys' protocol for handling any sort of positive tests that you guys occur, during the football season?
The pandemic and recruiting, of course, it's had a massive effect, of which we really won't be able to measure until probably 4 or 5 years from now, because when we really see how this class shakes down, obviously with it being dead since March in terms of, on-campus visits or us able to go out and evaluate prospects at their games, there's a lot of in-person connection that's been lost in that. That's been an issue for the 21 class for sure, but a major issue for the 2022 class, the class that's the juniors right now. Some of them, there was no spring football, there was no camp series in the summer. So I think evaluation for that 2022 class will be unlike any other year. There's some really, really good players out there in that 22 class that no one knows anything about. There's some states that aren't even playing high school football, so it's very difficult to tell. The impacts are going to be immense. Now, I do remember, it wasn't very long ago that most evaluation occurred in the senior year of the high school, athletes' sort of career. And now it's been pushed up earlier and earlier and earlier, and it may have to pivot back a little bit to trusting your evaluation on film senior year. We obviously, there's some schools here in Dade County that are playing 3 games and then the playoffs. So it's a super small sample size. So it's not just the seniors, it's those young ones that have a chance to be discovered and be found, that you're not, that they may be a little bit more hidden early on. And that's why, the recruiting rankings are always, subject to all kinds of discussion. But now on these young classes, it's going to be very, very difficult to know, who really the best players are until it plays out. And then the second part of your question, when you get a positive test, we're just in line with our university policy. Those players are quarantined away from the rest of the team or rest of the student body. And it's no different than it would be if it was, someone that was here to major in business or any other, UM student. We're right aligned with Dr. Frank's policy on any positive test we have.
Okay, we'll wrap up with David Wilson from the Herald. David, go ahead.
Hey, sort of following up on that recruiting for you guys. I'm curious if there's anything different you guys are trying to do this week with maybe some of that extra time, to whether it's just, talking to more kids or anything you can do. And then I know you have at least one person, one coach or one person on staff with a kid who plays, at a pretty big high school down here in South Florida. Is he able to go out and watch games, and can you get anything extra out of that from maybe having at least one person there in person sometimes?
If you have a son at a school, like I've been fortunate, I've been able to watch my son play. If you have a son at a school, you're allowed to go watch your son play. I think what will happen this week is we have a chance to dive into some film. There hasn't been any film to evaluate. If you're recruiting a South Florida prospect, the couple of the private schools started earlier, but most of the public schools just played their first game last Friday. So there's not a lot to watch. And we make a big deal about making sure that we watch what they do on the field and not pay attention, to rankings and stars and just those type of things, combine performances. We want to see how you play football. And we've not seen a lot of football, nor has anyone else. So So we will sit down, not just in the 21 class, the seniors, and see how those guys are performing, but we will try to really dig into the 22s and 23s of what's available. But we got to keep that. We'll keep building that resume because, again, you can't make any massive proclamations off of one game, and guys are still playing their way into shape. I mean, you're going to look at this football season just a little bit differently. I know it's different for us, and it's certainly different for all the high school prospects at every level. I mean, not just guys going to the ACC. I mean, 1AA prospects, Division II prospects. I mean, it's a big deal.